Hello, Dr. Enlow and classmates. In this lecture, I will be discussing the antebellum time period, spanning from the American Revolution and the early Republic to the days of great female abolitionists leading up to the Civil War. The women of the American Revolutionary era began to enjoy a more relaxed lifestyle, and for the most part did not experience the very serious struggle for survival that their early colonial ancestors had. Women began to join the class of consumers, and gain power and respect as mothers responsible for raising the children. As the American Revolution unfolded and the early republic was born, women began to assert themselves as part of the political protest. They were expected to enforce boycotts and support their families as their husbands went off to battle. Some women, such as Deborah Sampson Gannett, even joined their husbands on the front lines, supporting the troops and even fighting on occasion. Despite this social and political shift that allowed women to become more outspoken, they were still expected to behave as tender, submissive, and unintelligent. Young girls were often encouraged to mask their brightness in order to have any hope of finding a good husband. As America moved into the early 1800s, the women of the day were increasingly modern and active in their worlds. They pursued an education, however basic it might be, were active within the church, and were seen as moral beings. They began to change their views on marriage to be more centered around love and true companionship. Comfort and good homemaking and mothering were high on their list of priorities. In stark contrast to their role as immoral, tricky, and even evil beings in the early colonial colonies, women were now seen as the moral and somewhat passionless sex. They were believed to not experience sexual feelings, and girls raised during this time period were taught to remain childlike and a bit of a shut-in. This was because women were expected to remain at home, either waiting for a suitor or caring for the household and children, rather than participating much in society. During this time, countless books were written by female writers about the importance of caring for one's household. Titles include The American Frugal Housewife, A Treatise on Domestic Economy and All Around the House, or How to Make the Home Happy. All of these factors contributed greatly to the cult of domesticity, which urged women to remain stay-at-home mothers and wives whose worlds revolved around caring for her family. Widows often supported themselves and their children by writing such titles, and unmarried women often gravitated towards reform movements such as abolition or missionary activities. Very few women were successful in gaining extensive education. Some, however, were able to break into teaching roles, since there were not nearly enough male teachers to go around. By the mid-1800s, young girls were leaving home to flood the mills and factories as laborers. They often lived in dorms with the other working girls and were able to send home their meager wages to help support their families. White and black women were not the only ones to experience a cultural shift in the 1800s. Native American women, especially the Cherokee, experienced drastic changes in their culture during this time. As tribes began to adapt more Western ideas, women lost their power and respect. Tragedies like the Trail of Tears, which led thousands of Cherokees out of their native lands, were a catalyst for abuse and suffering of Cherokee women. As America edged closer to the Civil War, women, especially in the North and Midwest, took to the abolition movement very strongly. The immorality of slavery resonated with them, and so often women took leadership roles within the movement. Women like Harriet Beecher Stowe and the Grimke sisters produced literature and lectures that helped fuel the movement against slavery and gain more support for the abolitionists. The antebellum period was a time of major change for women of all races and ethnicities. Although there were still many issues surrounding the treatment and lack of rights, women took great strides during this time period and were able to adopt more influential roles within this time period and changed their role of power within their family.